Well, good morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone, everyone. This is Amy Schleicher. I'm a field specialist in livestock with University of Missouri Extension, headquartered in Northwest Missouri. I want to, again, welcome you to today's Animal Care Wednesday webinar. This is a cooperative effort of University of Missouri Extension, South Dakota State Extension, Iowa State Extension, as well as support from University of Nebraska Extension. We've been offering this program for a number of years now. And so we're excited to be able to continue to offer topics related to animal care, knowing that those are topics that our extension educators are interested in personally and professionally, as well as our clientele. So our topic today, and I will mention, we do have recordings of past sessions. You may see that scrolling on the slides there on your screen. So if you're interested in checking out our past content, we encourage you to do so. So today's program is actually part of a special series that we're doing on ergonomics and animal handling. And so we've actually got 3 presentations, the first of which is today, related to those ergonomic and animal handling types of topics. So our presentation today, we're going to be hearing from Kendra Graham. She's one of my colleagues in MU Extension. She's a field specialist in livestock as well, but she's headquartered over in the kind of the east central and southeast part of Missouri. Kendra's been with Extension for 20 years. Her areas of expertise and focus have included youth and agriculture, beef heifer development through the Show Me Select Replacement Heifer Program, management intensive grazing through the Missouri Grazing Schools, as well as a focus on small ruminant management and production. On the personal side of things, she and her family run a beef cow-calf operation utilizing management intensive grazing. They background calves, they produce hay and straw, and then her sons also have a small layer flock. So she's got an extensive background and experience, and her presentation today is going to be looking at ergonomic tools, related to safety, in particular, those tools and tips and tricks for women and youth involved in livestock production. So I will hand things over to Kendra. I do want to mention, if you do have any questions or comments for Kendra in regards to her presentation, please feel free to submit those in the chat and do so at any time. And we'll try to get those either during the presentation or afterwards. And you'll also notice towards the end of her talk, we'll be launching a poll. And I hope that you'll take just a few seconds to fill out those questions for us, because we do look at that information when we're planning the future program. So with that, Kendra, I'll hand things over to you.
Thanks, Amy. I hope everybody can see the screen correctly.
Looks great.
Great, thanks. So this presentation is kind of come about from my own experience and, the willingness to help people really want to do their farming operation and helping them to do that through partially through our AgriAbility program. And it doesn't necessarily mean those disabled people, but also, women and children who have a hard time handling some of the larger tools that we use on the farm. So hopefully this will help gain some insight to those people that maybe want to do those little bit heavier tasks that maybe need a little help or guidance on what tools to use. So this program came about. I have to mention our grant that we utilized to purchase these tools and do the video and pay for the travel to put this presentation and a couple other presentations together. We have a Missouri Beginning Farmers program, and with that, we through our University Extension operation, we got a USDA grant and also partnered with the Brain Injury Association of Missouri, and then our AgriAbility program. So you'll see that grant number down below. So a description of the tools, we wanted to try to find those tools that were easy to handle. My hands are small, and so are a lot of our other smaller framed people. I don't want to necessarily say women, because it could include, smaller persons, including youth. So we really wanted to make sure that they were also practical to the farm. This is not a promotion for any company or product. What we tried to do was go to local farm supply stores or online well-known websites to purchase those tools that anybody has access to. So these are not necessarily labeled as ergonomic or have that maybe seal of approval of ergonomics. And then I do have prices on some of these. So that was back in 2019 when we purchased those. So those may have changed since then. We're going to start off with ear tag applicators. And this could be for small ruminants, could be for swine, but mostly for beef cattle. You can see most of the tags listed are a little bit larger in size. We have a variety of them. I even have one that's been discontinued, and that is actually the worst one of the bunch, the heaviest one, the Temple Tagger. So if you have that in your toolbox, it may be a good idea to think about replacing that if you tag a lot of animals. All of them are relatively the same price, very small differences in those. And the main differences would be that whether they were plastic or metal. And then the type of tags used, almost all of them use a two-piece tag, except for the Z tag you see below at the bottom in the middle. That is a one-piece tag. And so that may be a deal breaker for those that don't want to try to mess with trying to find matching tags, the button and the tag itself, if you use multiple brands of tags. My favorites for small hands, and those are my hands that are holding those tags. So you can see that I don't have big hands. The Z tagger is what we use at home, and mainly because it's a one-piece tag, but also the tagger is lightweight and it has a smaller opening to squeeze. And so I have a hard time getting my fingers around sometimes to squeeze that. And so if I'm trying to tag a calf in the middle of the field, I want to be able to grab it and go and not have a problem trying to squeeze that two-handed. The All-Flex tag is also a good option if you're using a two-piece tag. Z-Tag does make a two-piece option now, and that tagger is also very similar to the All-Flex tag. It is very lightweight. And then I do want to mention the Y-Tex tag is also lightweight, a plastic material. And a good note that the Z-Tag and the Y-Tex tag both have flip-up pins. So when you're tagging that animal, you pull back, that pin flips up and releases. So that's kind of nice also. Syringes and vaccinators. The pistol grip syringe is a very nice option to have in your toolbox. I don't have it shown up here, but they do have a 25 milliliter that is a bit smaller and easier to handle. I really like that one. Those are the ones that you'll probably use to give vaccines that it may be modified live or that you have to mix. The other two are, I love the other two. They are repeater syringes, and so you attach the bottle to the end of these syringes, and you don't have to constantly refill a syringe. The All-Flex is the one I use the most, and that one squeezes extremely easy. So I'm upfront giving all the vaccinations, and if we give multiple vaccinations to 100 head of cattle and their calves, then my hand wears out fairly quickly. And using these syringes and vaccinators really helps to alleviate fatigue, and I'm not as grumpy at the end. They do have options for those that are not necessarily the typical vaccinator that we use. These are slap shots. A lot of times they're used in the swine operation. You can, it has a tube on the end and a needle you attach. You push that into the animal, and you have some flexibility of that animal moving and not necessarily pulling the needle out. And your hand is not in the way of potentially getting smashed in a chute. And so if you utilize this in either an open setting, like in the swine picture you see on the left, or in a confined setting with the animal in a head chute, you still have flexibility to do both of those. They're very nice. The trouble I do have with them is sometimes you get air in the line, and it may not necessarily give a proper dosage, so you need to pay attention to that. But it does help protect the person from getting their hands squashed. Castrators, if you do band castration and or banding, even using them for docking tails, there's two options here. Both of those made by Producer's Pride. Both of these were purchased at a local tractor supply store. And so you have both options. I prefer the larger one, which is surprising. You would think the larger one is heavier, and it's really not. The blue one is plastic. However, it is extremely hard to squeeze. And so I have more leverage with squeezing the metal one. And I also really appreciate the locking feature on the metal castrator. So I can lock that in place and get it situated, and then flip that little loop and let the band tighten up. So I prefer the metal one over the blue plastic one. Obstetric chains are pretty essential, mainly in cow-calf operations, but we use them in sheep and goats also. The handle is a must. And I really think that is something that everybody should have in their toolbox. I also have a picture thrown up here from Mississippi State University on how to put chains on a calf's leg in this case. We want to do that double hitch. It gives you a little more leverage, and it saves problems later on from harming that calf's leg. And so make sure you're doing that double hitch on those legs. If you do have to purchase these or need these in your toolbox, I prefer the longer chain. It's going to give me a lot of flexibility on if that calf is maybe a little bit deeper in the birth canal and just not right there. So I'm not going to lose the chain with the 30-inch. It's being too short. The handles, again, very necessary, and they don't have to have that special blue grip on it, but I think that helps. As you can see, most of the time you're going to have some sort of glove on, so any extra grip is helpful. They have mechanical pullers out there. They are extremely awkward for me to use. I would prefer to work with the cow quite a bit when I'm trying to pull those calves, and avoid using that mechanical calf puller. That's a lot of force on that animal. But as a last resort, you can. But they are extremely heavy. I almost always have to have help to hold that up, especially when the cow is jumping around in the chute, to get that calf pulled using a mechanical calf puller. So if you do have to have that and you're smaller in size, make sure you bring help with you. Nursing bottles. I try to kind of put this in order of what happens. So you pull that calf and mama doesn't want to take it. You're stuck with a bottle calf. And there's several options out there. The two I have are your cheaper version, little giant calf bottle, and then your peach teat, which is kind of a top of the line calf bottle. I also have listed here a fluid feeder. Most of those there's not much difference in those types out there, but it may be necessary to have in your toolbox. As you can see, the peach teat has a really nice handle on it. And that really is a bonus. My mom helps us feed bottle calves and is the primary feeder for those calves. And she has arthritis, and this is extremely helpful for her to be able to grip that bottle. Small hands just really can't get around those normal little giant bottles like that. You can also alleviate that if you have a big stash of those little giant bottles. You can buy a bottle holder. You can see on the right, those are nice to have, especially if you're feeding multiple calves in one spot. Do know that if those calves start to push on those bottles a little bit, they can pop out, so you may have to hold down on them. But it really beats trying to keep your hand around and holding 3 bottles at once to try to feed those calves. Grain feeding. Amy had mentioned in my bio, we background calves. And so that's a lot of feed sometimes that we have to put out in a trough. And that's a lot of buckets. We use a lot of 5-gallon buckets, and we really try to minimize the access that animals have to us when we have that 100 head in that lot. And so utilizing this hooks back on the back of an ATV or a UTV, and you're pulling it along the troughs, and it's doing the work for you. You're not having to lift buckets multiple times. You won't even have to touch a bucket if you have an auger from the grain bin to auger it directly into the feed cart. And what we do is we count out the number of seconds it takes to fill up a bucket. And for us, a bucket is about 30 pounds. And so we just calculate how many seconds we have to feed to get the correct amount. It can be a little tedious with mud. And so you may want to make sure you have those feed troughs in a place where you're not going to get stuck, because that grain cart gets pretty heavy when it's full. This one in particular will hold about 18 buckets. So it really serves our needs well. Sorting aids, I think, are extremely important. They help keep distance away from you and the animal. The sorting pole and the whip you see on the right are probably the 2 best options that I've found. However, I do have a little bit of gripe of this particular sorting pole. It's a little heavy for me. They make a lot lighter option, and it's a little long. I find myself trying to put that under my arm to lessen the length, and it could be a little bit shorter, and they have those out there. The flag is very nice for a visual and a noise maker. Be careful of overusing those. And then the catch hook, that it shows here the young lady catching a goat, but you can use those for catching calves for out in the field or whatnot. I do think that you need to be careful with that catch hook, because it might try to bend that leg. So make sure you're watching how the animal is affected by that. And do not use it on a larger animal, because they will jerk that thing right out of your arm and could really cause some damage to your shoulder. Head chutes, there's millions of them out there, millions of brands. This one in particular that we're using on our WordAC research farm is a Foremost. These are both, this is a manual chute, and so we have to manually catch that animal, each animal that comes through. I'm always sore after using a manual head chute, regardless of if it's in good working order or not. And so be aware that you have a lot of overhead work that you're utilizing, and your stomach muscles as well. And so sometimes the taller chute is not always the better. This is a tall. They make a normal or regular, which is shorter. So if you're the primary operator of the head chute, you may want to go for a shorter head catch versus the taller one seen here. They do make self-catching head gates, and it definitely helps on alleviating some stressors. However, you need to make sure and go and try them out. I used one just this morning at a producer's farm, and it is extremely heavy. And so it's nice that the animal catches itself, but trying to open that up to get the animal out towards the front, because it's so heavy, it really puts a lot of strain on you. So it's not necessarily the end all be all to get a self catch. So make sure you try all these out. They have trade shows that you can go to and you know, attempt to see how they work. So definitely do that. Here's a video, kind of shows our model, Rachel Hopkins. She's a coworker that in ag business that helped me take some of these videos. And you can kind of see in the video a little bit how she has to almost lean on or hang on the arm to make sure that animal is caught. And so a lot of pulling, a lot of tugging, a lot of motion here. Be aware that is going to happen, especially if you're the operator. And really the thing to do is to make sure that these chutes are well lubed, because if they aren't, it's really a struggle to and even more effort to get those to close. So lubricate all of those moving parts. Some of them even have grease zerks that you can force grease into. Every little piece on there, especially if they're outside like this one, they're going to get bound up or be more effort. So have that WD-40 or lube spray, 3-in-1 oil, whatever is your preference, and get those lubricated before you do any work. So alleyways are extremely helpful in working animals. As you can see here, and this is at our Wordak farm, we have a raised alleyway. When I don't have a raised alleyway and I have to move animals up, I'm constantly bruising the underside of my arm because I'm reaching over, I'm not very tall, to get those animals to move up, slap them on the back or whatnot. And so this raised alleyway is really nice to be able to stand up above the animals and see in there. However, I do want to have a little bit of gripe. My legs are short also, and so it's a big step to get up on this walkway. And so another little step would be helpful to do that, so I don't wear out my knees so quickly or my hips. Rods are good to insert behind animals to keep them moving up the alleyway and to stop. Make sure that your rod is going to be lightweight enough for you to use if you're constantly putting that bar behind those animals, and don't ever use it as a pry bar. Regardless of the size of the animal, they can really pinch you either forward or backward, one way or the other. So the key is to inserting that rod after the animal's already passed and not trying to back up or not trying to use to pry them forward. Some miscellaneous tools that I tend to have in my toolbox, bolt cutters. This is a really nice option. We liked these. They're very lightweight. They're not very long, and they fold up. And so I can fit them into a 5-gallon bucket without it sticking up and falling over. Claw hammer. I found one of the lightest ones. My husband always gripes at me that I don't ever hold the hammer right when I'm nailing in a steeple, but I can't hold at the very end like you're supposed to and have enough strength to swing that and hit the steeple. I miss every time, so I always have to choke up on it a little bit and hold it towards the middle. So I don't know that the heavier hammer is going to be any more benefit, so get one that feels good in your hands. The lineman's pliers are an absolute necessity. We have managed grazing and use electric fence, and so I can cut wire or hold on to wire that's still hot. And so I find the smallest pair of lineman's pliers that I can. And this is a smaller size that you see here. And then a pocket knife is always good to have. And this one I really appreciate because it has a locking blade. If I don't have that locking blade, I'm constantly, it's closing on me and I have the risk of cutting my fingers. We use impacts or drills quite a bit. And as you can see, the one on the left is a little bit smaller. It's a 12-volt, and it does the job perfectly. Very rarely do I need anything with more power than that. The DeWalt on the right is a 20 volt. It's a little bit heavier, a little more awkward to use. And so pay attention to that, even if they have a sale on those 20 volts before Christmas, look for those smaller size, and I think it will do the job well for you. The one picture on the right, Rachel is using a crimping tool, and this one, they make smaller ones, and the smaller ones are nice to have to get into tight places. I can never get those closed. You're putting a lot of force on crimping that wire, and so the longer ones have proved a lot easier for me. It gives me a little more leverage, and I can get those closed rather than trying to squeeze the smaller one, and I tend to use my body to help me squeeze those. So that's something to look into. Gloves, I think, are very essential in farming operations, regardless of if you're raising livestock or you're gardening. I think this is something that's very important for us to pay attention to and to use. I didn't for a long time, and I wonder why I waited so long to find a good pair of gloves. If you see the ones with the padded palms, the brown ones and the black and gray ones, those are even good for vibration protection. And so we had a talk, listened to a speaker, Carrie Portell, and she mentioned she has some, it was in a car wreck and has some issues to go along with that. In order for her to be able to drive a tractor for a long period of time, she uses these vibration gloves, and she can last longer. So it never, until I heard her talk, it never occurred to me that gloves could be the vibration control. So look for some of that. And then padding on the knuckles. I'm forever bloodying my knuckles. So that padding is kind of nice. So if I'm running the head shoot, I want to find a glove that's pretty sensitive. However, it's going to help me grip as well. So look for those, go try them on. And then if you're building fence, leather, nothing beats leather in building barbed wire fence. So this one, the glove is small, but it's not my favorite. I have another glove that has a mesh back even for the leather, and it works really well. Just a few more things that may make life easier for you. The Gatewheel. I love the Gatewheel. I am the gate opener in the operation most of the time. And so lifting those gates really puts a strain on my back and neck. And I love going through the gates with the wheel on there. It's so much easier to open. So you can buy those fairly reasonably. The one on the left is a little bit lower profile. The one on the right is kind of a homemade type deal, and it helps lift the end of the gate up and saves our hinges, puts less pressure on that. So some final thoughts. Go into the store, make some time to go feel those tools. And you never think, you want to use what you have on the farm. Well, I have a hammer. I don't need to go and get another one. But if you're the primary person fixing fence or whatnot, go feel those tools and buy some that work for you. I'm constantly buying those Lineman's pliers and hiding them in my truck because my husband and my boys use them also, and it seems like those are the ones that they can find all the time. So hide them, have a set just for you, or make sure they're pink and purple or a ugly green. I don't know. They're less likely for them to get stolen or used by somebody else. Lubrication. Lubricate those pliers, lubricate the head chute, the hinges. Carry that with you, and a little bit of lubrication really makes a huge difference on easing the pressure put on your body by rusty parts. They do make ergonomic tools. I haven't found that they're hugely different from the others. If you're finding a tool that's good in your hands, that's the key. If you find an ergonomic tool that fits and is a little more pricey, definitely buy it, because if you're using it frequently, it's kind of like a mattress. You don't want to buy a bad mattress that you're sleeping on every night. buy a good tool that you're using every day and pay the extra money for it. Some final thoughts. I had asked a local chiropractor to give some her thoughts that we should pay attention to. And of course, the first one is very easy: lift correctly, use your legs. We all know that. The key is to putting these thoughts into practice. She said she sees a lot of people because they are twisting or moving as they're lifting and pulling. So she said, break that up into steps, lift first and then twist, instead of doing it all in one motion. She said ice is much better than heat, which I was surprised, but if you have some sort of injury, go ahead and ice it and not necessarily put that heat on it. Avoid overhead work. She said she sees tons of people that have extreme shoulder and neck injuries because they're constantly working overhead. So stand on a ladder or get a step stool to make it the place where you're working, at chest level versus working overhead. Be careful stepping up and down. She sees a lot of people with something twisted or whatnot, or falls. And the main thing she stressed was know your limitations. If you need help, then you need to ask for it and don't necessarily try to lift something more than what you can. And then the last thing is get help when you are injured. Don't let it go. It's not okay to have a bad back, and it's not bragging rights. So get some sort of help or treat it, rest, ice it, something like that. And so I want to give a thank you to the people that helped take the pictures and take the videos that are found here. Tevin Utlot is our communications coordinator with Extension. And then of course, I had mentioned our model, Rachel Hopkins. She's an ag business specialist also. And then all of this was made possible by a grant that we had, our Beginning Farmer Rancher grant. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation, Kendra. As folks are giving thought to any comments or questions for you, I did want to mention that I did launch the poll. And so if you guys would be willing to share your input regarding today's session, we'd really appreciate it. Kendra, I really enjoyed just your amazing level of experience, and that it's not always about things you necessarily have to purchase, but it sometimes is just a matter of doing things a little bit differently to help avoid those injuries. So in your experience as you work with producers, what are some of the most common, I guess maybe what I'm asking is, what are, if somebody could start with one thing or two things, what would you suggest would be the highest priority changes that they should make regarding ergonomics and how that can help with handling and safety?
So, I mean, it really depends on their operation, but one of the things that has really been a lifesaver, my husband and I farm, but also my parents, and they're in their 70s. So one of the best purchases we made was that grain cart. My dad does a lot of the feeding. He's not always as quick on his feet as he used to be. And so he can use that grain cart and not have to worry about getting out of the way of the animals running to the trough. And it really saves his back, not having to load buckets to go out and feed. So that's probably one of the best things. The second best one, and we just upgraded on our farm, was the head chute. We bought one that worked better, and you pretty much pay for what you get. And so don't skimp on a head chute unless you are have a great deal, or maybe even buying a used one. Make sure it's working properly. So those are two really expensive purchases, but ones that absolutely necessary, I think, that you use quite frequently, that will help prevent some injuries.
Great, thank you for that. So I don't see any other questions or comments. So Kendra, is there a way that folks can reach you if they do want to visit with you after today's presentation?
Sure. My email is Graham, GRAHAMKK at Missouri, and Missouri is spelled out, .edu. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. You can also call my office, and that number is 573-756-4539.
Great, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to hear you give these different presentations on this topic. I think it's a really cool area that's a part of your focus in your position. So again, thank you for your talk. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. I do want to mention that again, this presentation today is part of a special series we're doing. The next sessions will be on December 8th and 15th. On December 8th, we're going to be hearing a presentation on how handling affects the skeleton and muscles with a focus on equine companion animals as well as people. And then on December 15th, the presentation will be about applying ergonomics and training to improve the workplace with a focus on lessons from dairy. So should be a couple of really nice additions to this overall series. So we hope you can join us. If not, all of our content, with a few exceptions, all of our content is available as recordings on our YouTube channel. So please check that out when you have time. So again, thank you everyone for being here today, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Have a good day.